Hello, and welcome to the Random House Children's Books Spring 2024 preview. I'm Sarah Hunter, Books for Youth and Graphic Novels editor at Booklist. Before we begin, I'd like to go over some technical details. Links to today's slide presentation and title list were included in the reminder email you received from Zoom 1 hour ago. To download them, please open that email, scroll to the bottom, and click on the links located there. You can also download the slides and title list by copying the URLs on this screen into your web browser. If you have any trouble, please contact us at webinars@booklistonline.com. The audience is in listen-only mode, but we welcome any questions you may have. On the bottom of your screen is a toolbar with a section for Q&A. If you have a question or need technical assistance, simply click Q&A and type your message into the box that appears. We will do our best to respond to all tech-related questions, and we'll pass along all other questions to today's panelists so they can follow up with you after the webinar. Booklist offers closed captioning on all webinars. To enable or disable captions on your screen, please look for and click the captions icon on the toolbar mentioned earlier. From there, you can select show or hide captions from the menu that appears. If you choose to enable subtitles, you can adjust the size of the captions at any time by selecting caption settings. And finally, Booklist expects all participants to maintain an atmosphere of respect and fairness. Anyone who violates this standard of behavior, including engaging in any form of harassment, may, at the discretion of the organizers, be immediately removed. We have a wonderful preview from the Random House Children's School and Library team today. We are going to kick things off with a conversation with Sophie Blackall, Aaron Cron, and Sheetal Sheth. Let me start by introducing our guests. Sophie Blackall is the award-winning illustrator of over 50 books for children, including Finding Winnie and Hello Lighthouse, which both received the Caldecott Medal. She also illustrated A Fine Dessert, 4 Centuries, 4 Families, One Delicious Treat, written by Emily Jenkins, which received 4-star reviews and was a New York Times Best Illustrated book. Her most recent picture book, Farmhouse, was an instant New York Times bestseller, received 5-star reviews, including 1 in Booklist, and was also a New York Times Best Illustrated book. Sophie's many other honors included BCCB Blue Ribbon, an Ezra Jack Keats New Illustrator Award, Society of Illustrators Founders Award, and a Charlotte Zolotow honor. She lives in Brooklyn, New York. Sheetal Sheth is an accomplished actress, producer, and author and activist. She has starred in more than 20 feature films and TV shows. Sheetal supports marginalized communities through her work as an actor and by appearing at workshops and panels to speak directly to issues facing those communities. She is an outspoken advocate and has delivered talks and keynotes at festivals and charity galas. She has had op-eds published on CNN, The Daily Beast, and Thrive Global. She served in President Clinton's AmeriCorps and is currently on the advisory board of Equality Now and an ambassador for Representation Project, founded by Jennifer Siebel Newsom, the first partner of California. Sheetal is the author of Always ANJALI and Making Happy. Aaron Cron is a children's book illustrator, woodcutter, and printmaker. She loves the process of carving her characters into wood and seeing how their quirky and whimsical identities come to life through the ink in the prints. Aaron lives and works in Vancouver, British Columbia. Welcome, Sophie, Sheetal, and Aaron. I will turn on my camera now too, and we can get started with the questions. Hi, welcome everyone.
Hi.
So I'm going to start with some group questions, and then we'll move on to some questions about each of your books individually. I'd like to start out pretty easy. What is so gratifying for all of you about writing books for children? Sophie, can we start with you?
Oh, yes. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Sarah. And thank you, Booklist and Penguin Random House for having us all here. And hi to all the invisible, wonderful librarians and teachers who might be watching. I am in the middle of a book tour right now. So I left about 300 children in rural Virginia where we had a horse, a live horse, and we were outside drawing this horse. They were fine. They totally have the rest of the horse drawing under control. But that, to me, is the most gratifying thing about making books, is to actually then go and be with the children that we make them for, and to see what an effect that reading has on these kids' lives, and how to make those books more accessible to children across this country. You as librarians know how difficult that is, getting the books into their hands sometimes. So to be part of that whole process is just incredibly rewarding.
Wonderful. Sheetal, how about you?
Yeah, I would echo that. I love, love, love being with children. I have worked with kids my whole life, so it is pure joy to be able to take something that we've created and go and actually see how it's doing in front of the children and actually having that conversation. I think it's a privilege to be able to create anything for kids. I take that to heart. And I really, really think it's important to remember the audiences and make sure that we are speaking directly to them and meeting them where they are. And so nothing makes me happier than them realizing that authors can look like me. A lot of people have never seen an author look like me. They don't see stories written the way I do about real things. And so it is very gratifying that so many of them see themselves in a way that they never have before.
Wonderful. Okay, Erin, you're up.
Yeah, I think I also want to echo what all of you guys said. I think, as an illustrator, I haven't written any books yet myself, but I've illustrated about 6. And I think the most rewarding part is like you spend almost a year working on, the character design in a book, like of the character, you work on like all the illustrations, and then to be able to see it like out in the world and like to see the character you've made and spent so much time with become belong to the kids, and to see the kids interact and like really just like get excited about something that you made and worked on. It's pretty rewarding. It's very great.
What are some of the unique challenges for creating books for children, and what keeps you coming back to it? Sheetal, why don't we start with you for this one?
I feel very lucky that, so I have 2 little girls in my home, 6 and 9. They are my focus group. So I feel very lucky that I do have that, but it's about how do you keep it fresh? At least for me, how do you keep it fresh? How do you keep it entertaining? How do you layer in all the things that you're trying to put in there? But thankfully, I have very honest little people in my home that I can read to. I love reading because of my actor background. I really love reading things out loud. It really helps me in writing and in the rhythm. So when we're tied or they don't like something or I don't believe them, then I have all their friends I can go to. And I'm like, I need more people's opinions. And so for me, it's really about how do you get them to want to keep turning the page, and how do you get them to want to read that book again and have it be the thing that they leave under their pillow. And I see that with my own kids, and I try to see like why they like that book or why they like that book. And so for me, it's really figuring out that secret sauce, which there's no answer for. It's really a matter of just throwing things against the wall and hoping something works. But I really love kind of that back and forth in the process.
Erin, would you like to take this one next? What are the unique challenges?
I mean, yeah, I would echo what Sheetal said. Like, kids are the harshest critics. And to be able to like keep their attention and want to like keep going through the book is a huge challenge, and to be able to convey emotion and complex ideas really simply, especially in a picture, is really tough. And it's really hard to make it look simple. And this is why I'm such a big fan of Sophie's, because I've looked at her books, and her talent is amazing. So yeah, it's great to be able to be inspired by other artists and see how they tackle complex narratives. So yeah.
I was just admiring your incredible storm clouds and things in FLUFFALO. So right back at you, Erin. Sarah, can I just keep talking? Can I jump in?
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things that I think these 3 books have in common, AHOY and Bravo ANJALI and FLUFFALO, is that they are all stories. And I don't know if this will resonate with any of you who are listening today, but having spent an awful lot of time in the last 2 weeks with teachers and librarians on the road, the thing that I keep hearing again and again is our kids want stories. And it is fantastic that there have been so many books lately that are, that are empowering and that are about all different kinds of identities. And I'm thrilled that these books exist in the world. But I also know that kids long for a really good story, a story that they want to read out loud, a story that they want to read again and again and again. And so it's both a challenge to find the way to get those books to kids, but it's one of the most rewarding things. And it's so exciting to have one of those books that's coming out in the world. It's these good yarns.
I will just echo what
And I just,
Sophie said, because I just wanted to say, I also hear that, because I think what happens, especially with picture books in particular, is as beautiful as they do sometimes get very abstract and metaphorical. And of course the poetry is beautiful, but similarly, kids are like, can I just connect to a story? And they want to see things that they're actually dealing with in their own lives. And so I hear that as well.
What
yeah,
were
and
you
I
gonna
just
say,
wanted to
Erin?
compliment, I wanted to compliment Bess, because unfortunately she couldn't make it today, but it's so hard to write like in rhyme. And in Buffalo Fluffalo, like Bess just like nailed it. Like the way the whole book reads is just like so much fun. And I just wanted to compliment her because it's incredibly hard to pull that off. And I feel very lucky to have illustrated a book that is, you know, tackles a complex idea, but in a very fun, like rhythmic and silly way.
Yeah, I'm a little curious, Sheetal. You mentioned that there are some like the secret sauce you said you could not actually identify, but
If
what
someone
are
knows it,
those?
please tell me.
I don't know it either, but I'm curious about like what the individual elements that like really resonate with your own children are, and how do you think about those things when you're writing your own books?
Well, I mean, it is, like I said, I'm living in it. So whether it's how they're taking it in, it's if they're, you know, half asleep, or if they're laughing or interested or have lots of questions. The laughter really gets me. They love silly. But they have to have it in story. And the questions, the like, wait, can we stop for a second? And have questions like that's an engaged reader, and that's somebody who wants to go back and read it again. And the biggest compliment is being able to get more things out of all of your books. Sophie, we're big fans of Ivy and Bean in our house as well. My kids love it. They're going to be so excited, the fact that we were like actually on a screen together. But similar, because, and you do that like the characters that you create are so opposite, but it's fun. Again, they're stories. So I think it's really about figuring out what our kids are actually doing, feeling, and dealing with at school, and putting it into, you know, what I call, my books are all realistic fiction. They're actually all real stories that I've added author magic to. And I think kids appreciate that.
Erin, this is a really good segue into the question I have for you, which is Buffalo Fluffalo is very rhythmic and silly, as you mentioned, but it also has a very sincere message at its core. And I'm curious about how you balance those two contrasting elements in the images to ensure that both the silliness and the seriousness come through in the pictures.
Yeah, that's like a very good question. And I think that my answer would be the character design plays a big role in conveying like the silliness and also like the serious message behind the book. I remember working on the character design with Maria and Bess and my agent Kirsten. And I wanted to make the character look very cute and endearing and like silly. So I remember like Kirsten would be like messaging me, be like, more fluff, add more fluff, add more fluff. So I ended up making this buffalo that looks like a giant like cotton ball. So that was like, you know, automatically you look at this buffalo throughout the book, and he is very silly and sweet. And then merging that with conveying the emotion correctly on each page. At the end of each sketch, I would ask myself, like, is this emotion right? Does this character have conviction? Can I relate to the emotion in this? And then I would ask kids, and I would ask, you know, family members. And I think that was the biggest piece. And then also like, you know, incorporating that in layout and how you are getting the two characters to interact. And yeah, so that would be my answer. Hope that answers the question.
I was thinking that it must have something to do with the eyes. There's like these great big giant eyes, and I feel like that really carries a lot in the pictures specifically.
Yeah, and I mean, like, for example, you know, here's one little illustration that I made for the book. Like, you see this huge puffy buffalo, and he actually is quite small, but like the way the layout is, you know, he looks big in contrast to the prairie dog. And yeah, you have these big bright eyes looking all grumpy, and yeah, it's true.
Sophie, I'd like to turn it over to you next. I love how the kid in AHOY insists that they are not playing for the whole book. And I'm really curious about how if you can speak to how serious kids take play and how you think about that when you're making books for children.
Oh, sure. I mean, play is a serious business. It is also something joyful and hopefully something that we allow kids to do and to take it seriously because, of course, children learn so many developmental skills through play, not just sort of physical motor skills, but also problem solving and empathy by taking on roles and enacting kinds of characters who are different to themselves. But the sort of make-believe or pretend or imaginary is a different kind of thing to the sort of physical playing actual games. Because it really does enable a child who, for the most part, does not have a whole lot of power or control over their lives, doesn't have much agency, to actually take complete control over their situation in a safe environment. They can do it anywhere at any time. It doesn't cost anything. You can switch it on and off. But when you are playing this game, this imaginary adventure, you can be anywhere, you can be anyone, you can do anything. And the things that that kids develop in these imaginary scenarios, they can bring back to the real world and apply to everyday situations. It's a way of temporarily escaping a situation we're in. It's what we all do when we read books, really. We immerse ourselves in a different kind of world, and for a temporary moment, we can be transported. It's one of the great joys of reading and of imagining.
And it also seems like the parent in AHOY probably needs to escape from some day-to-day drudgery too.
Exactly. I feel like this book kind of gives parents license to not vacuum. That is part of my gift to the world. Put down that vacuum. And also
Pretend you're on a boat.
The emails can wait.
Sheetal, this actually relates nicely again to the question that I'm about to ask you. A theme that really struck me in Bravo ANJALI is getting the permission to take up space and express feelings. Even Deepak, who says some mean things about ANJALI, gets an opportunity to name how he feels, which I thought was very important. What makes those moments important for you to put and kids to see in picture books?
Yeah, I want kids to know that there's no such thing as a bad feeling or emotion or whatever. I mean, I think we're all going to have all the emotions. And I think that we always hear these like buzzwords around kids. They need to be resilient. They need to get through things and all, et cetera, et cetera. But then we don't actually give them tools to do those things. And every time I see, not every time, but I see often, you see like what some people may call an outburst or a tantrum for a kid. Usually a grown-up is trying to just get them to stop, when actually I'm like, maybe they're having a hard time. They're not giving you a hard time. They're having a hard time. And so what our job is actually to kind of guide them through it. And so for me, Anjali is a character who has big emotions. You see it in all of her books, and she's going to express them. That's why there's that big scene in the bathroom where she's like, and like everything is coming out. But similar, and she's had this friction with her friend Deepak, but similarly, like he's also going through something and he may not have treated her well, but what's the room for growth? And so I really wanted to model him taking responsibility in that moment of like, I wasn't a good friend, but this is why. I was jealous. I didn't like not being the best. And I think if we can model and show ways and language for our kids to kind of get through these moments, which are all things they're going to have to deal with, we're going to be better off.
Yeah, I think a lot of parents would agree with you, even though a tantrum is hard.
Yes, no, I get it. I've been there, but it's really hard sometimes.
Yeah. So I'd like to pose this question to all of you again. I want you to talk about some of your biggest influences for your books. Erin, can we talk to you first about this? What's the biggest influence for your books?
Yeah, that's a toughie. I mean, I'm influenced by a lot of things, but I guess because my main joy in making picture books is creating character design, so I think I'm really inspired by a few artists that I follow, like Richard Scarry. I love his, like, the way he creates his character and the quirk in his illustrations. And then also like Pixar animator Deanna Marcelez. She's incredible. So that's my latest influence right now. And then of course it's Sophie. She's actually one of them as well. Yeah, I'll let you say, right?
Sophie, how about we go to you next? What are your biggest influences in your books? You cover such a wide variety of like eras and types of character and topics.
I do. I think each book is feels like a world I want to live in for the year or so that I'm making it. And this will sound like I'm ancient and broken, and I don't mean to at all, but I'm thinking that I have only a few books left in me, not because I'm ancient or broken, but there are so many other things I want to do, and I run this thing called Milkwood, which maybe some of you know about, which is all encompassing. So which is just to say that the books that I am making and the books that I will make in the future, I'm thinking very carefully about and thinking what is this world I want to live in for the duration and continue to live in, because when we make a book, we live with it for the rest of our lives. And we're talking to children, you know, now, because I am so ancient and not broken, there are children who are coming up to me who are some ridiculous age, like 25 or 30 even, and saying, I read your books when I was a kid. so they are books that I really want to be in the world. I think that is what I'm approaching each book as. Does this need to exist? And am I the right person to make it? And how can I make it the best book that needs to be in the world?
How special, Sophie, is it a special feeling when you meet an adult that said, I grew up with one of your books? Like, that must be a very great feeling.
It is, and I don't want to hog the talking stick, but just this morning, and I'm a little teary thinking about it.
Yeah.
A 26-year-old came up to me with the book that just came out, which is called If I Was a Horse, and they were holding it in their hands, and they said they were a big fan of Ivy and Bean when they were a kid, and they have recently transitioned, and this book that is like AHOY is about imagination and imagining that you are something else, something other, trying something else out. They said that this book for them and this idea of trying something else out and immersing yourself in an imaginary world was incredibly helpful for them as they were transitioning, and I just completely lost it. So yeah, it doesn't get better than that.
Sheetal, how about you?
You got me all teared up.
I know.
It's hard to follow that, I know, but I'm eager to hear from you too about your inspirations.
You know, my writing was more of channeling my rage of basically when I started having kids, I would go to bookstores, and I love, like I said, I've worked with kids my whole lives, and I love my whole life, and I love libraries. And I was really like, wow, these are the same books that I had when I was a kid. And so it was really not finding anything that I wanted to put in front of my children, or let's say it wasn't a complete library that I didn't have for my children, that really made me start writing. So my influence was really like, what did I need when I was growing up? And what do my kids need? And what do all the kids of the world need? And I think all the kids in the world need to see and have books that reflect the whole world in front of them. And so we're all better for it. And so it was very much about creating that. And to Sophie's point, there's no better compliment. I cannot tell you how many adult brown people come up to me and say, your books are like in my shelf because I needed this book and I will use it as an adult, and all the things that we talk about, or I may say in there. And so, you know, I think that that's the biggest compliment. And I hope that I continue to make books that are speaking to people and things that haven't been done. I think there's a lot. So I feel like I have a lot to write, and I hope that there'll be more and more and more, but it's a very untapped market. I think that for a very long time, all different people from different groups were only allowed to talk about extraordinary things, celebrations, holidays, you know, something big. And I was like, I want to see as many books about the mundane as I do about the extraordinary, about the everyday. I want to write a book about being on a boat. I'm not allowed to do that, you know, because it's harder for me. I have to justify my stories in a different way, or people are always looking for the cultural angle, and that's frustrating. And so I would like to get to a point where I can make all the books, even if it's a book about a brown kid collecting worms.
Here's to that.
Yeah.
For real. Yeah, that's a really, really good point. Sheetal, I'm going to go right back to you for this next question. What does it mean to you today to see your books in libraries?
Oh,
Given
well,
everything that you just said.
I will tell you, so I was a library kid. I was sent to the library for like care, like that was my babysitting, because my parents didn't have anywhere else to put me. So libraries are, I love, love, love libraries. I find them to be the greatest equalizer. And when you're in a library, everybody has access to all the things, which is why what's happening in the world right now is so heartbreaking, because that is the space that should be wherever you need, whatever you need, that will save lives. And so for me, libraries are everything. I love you all, teachers, librarians, everything you do, you are angels. And so thank you for everything that you've done for me, because I know there were many, many afternoons where that book saved me.
Erin, how about you? What does it mean to you to see your books in libraries?
You guys are making me tear up a lot in this conversation. And that, yeah, like I think I can relate to that, just being a kid. And I remember going into the library when I was going through a hard time in my family life, and the librarians at my school were just the most approachable and warm individuals, and they would help me find a book, and I would take that book home and just like feast on it for a week, and just like, and it would be my little friend and companion. And I just think it's so special to be a part of that world and in this little way. So yeah.
Sophie, how about you?
Oh,
You have lots of books in libraries. What does that mean to you?
it's all of those things, and oh my goodness, I have just loved sharing this panel with all of you, because you're saying all the same things. As Sheetal said, the librarians are they're our second parents, they're therapists, they're cheerleaders. They also, talking to librarians this week, I'm hearing more and more that all the different things that libraries do, not just providing books and getting the right book to the right reader at the right time, but also maybe a telescope or a microscope or a cake pan shaped like Texas. Or, you know, the things that libraries do enable us to be ourselves. I think when we go into a library, more than any other place I can think of, we are able to go into that space and be ourselves. And if we're not quite sure who we are, we can find who we are on the shelves. And maybe, as Sheetal said, we can find a book that reflects some truth of our own that we hadn't seen before in a book, or we can find something that we've never seen before that inspires us to take that journey. And I'm, you know, completely grateful and indebted to libraries, and so enraged and empathetic for all that you are facing right now, the ridiculous challenges of not being able to get the books into the hands of the readers who need them most, those life-changing books. So thank you for doing it in spite of all of those challenges.
And I will just add that my 9-year-old isn't like just obsessed with reading, and all she wants to be when she grows up is a librarian. And it really touches my heart. Like every day she's like, Mom, I just want to be a librarian. She picks library over recess every day when she has a choice at school. And the librarians at her school love her, and it just warms my heart.
So we have a little bit of time left, and an author panel, sometimes I like to do like a quick fire lightning round where I'm just going to go through, I'm going to ask you a question and you have to give me like the first thing that comes to your mind. And this is how we'll wrap up today. So I will go Sophie, Sheetal, Erin. Very quickly.
I'm nervous.
What's the book that made you want to make books for children? Sophie.
Oh, I know the answer to this one. The Country Bunny and the Little Gold Shoes, Du Bois, Hayward, and illustrated by Marjorie Flack. It came out in 1939. I think it may have been the first feminist picture book. It holds up today. Not only is it about the little brown country bunny that became one of the Easter bunnies, in spite of everybody telling her she couldn't do that and to grow up and go away and eat a carrot. It also showed when she raises her children on her own, all 21 of them, it shows all of the things that she teaches them to do to make them good grown-up rabbits. And to two of them, she gives paints and paintbrushes. And for me as a child, I saw that this is a girl who can go on and do anything that she wants. She can raise children and have a career. And also it showed that being an artist is as valuable a job as any of the others that she trained her rabbits to be. So it was incredibly influential to me as a kid, and I love it still.
Wonderful. Sheetal.
I'm just going to say the name. It's this book called The Girl and the Goddess by Nikita Gill. I love her. I love her writing. And this book in particular, it's a mix of prose and poetry. And it is one of the most beautiful and haunting things I've ever read. Didn't write it.
Erin, you're next.
Yeah, for strictly like illustration, it's April's Kittens. This is the first book as a young girl. Like I remember looking at the just simple black and white charcoal drawings and just feeling like just like in love with these little kittens. And I loved how like fluffy the illustrator made the kittens look and how tenderly they were illustrated. And I just remember wanting to do that too.
Great answers. Okay, next question. This time I'm going to go Sheetal, Erin, Sophie. What's your favorite thing about your local library? Sheetal?
Oh my gosh. So they do a book swap, which we love. And so it's always very stressful in our home because my daughters don't want to like give up any of their books, but I always remind them they can get other ones. So I love that they do book swaps and you can bring it wherever you want and you can sit there and you can talk to the other people. And then you come home with all the books as well.
Erin.
Mine is simple. My library is super close to me. It's right up the street, so I'm always there. When I was working on Buffalo FLUFFALO, I went there frequently to look up like plants that are grown in like Montana prairies, so I could get inspired on what kind of plants I wanted to put in the book. So yeah, just the handiness.
All right, Sophie.
My local library is the main branch of the Brooklyn Public Library, which is an incredible building full of amazing librarians, and you can go and learn another language there. You can have pie and coffee. But it was where I went when I first moved to this country and wanted to make children's books. I was not yet doing it, and I went and just read my way through the youth section, and my son learned to walk there. He's 24 now, but he took his first steps in the Brooklyn Public Library.
That's a great memory. Okay, last one. This time I'm going to go Erin, Sophie, Sheetal. What is the best reaction you've ever gotten from a reader? Erin.
My latest story I got was a parent just said that one of my books, Something's Wrong, was their favorite book to read at night, and they think it's the most hilarious book ever. And I thought that was just such a compliment because I love making people laugh through my pictures. So yeah.
Wonderful. Sophie.
Oh my goodness. I think my head is just still ringing from this interaction this morning with this person. So I'm just going to stick with that one.
It's a good answer. Sheetal.
I recently was in a school and we were in the middle of an assembly and a girl raised her hand, and later the teachers told me that she doesn't raise her hand and she's somebody who doesn't actually participate that much, but she raised her hand and said, "When I read your books, I feel loved."
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And that is we are just at time. That is the perfect ending button. So thank you so much for that. Thank you, Sophie, Sheetal, and Erin. And now I'll pass things back off to the Random House Children's Books School and Library team. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there. I want to express our immense gratitude to Sheetal, Erin, and Sophie for starting the preview off on such a high note. And welcome to the Random House Children's Book Spring 2024 preview. My name is Erica Stone, and I'm the Associate Manager for Library Marketing. On behalf of our entire school and library team, we are delighted you could join us today and eager to give you a glimpse of some of the titles on our upcoming list. So let's kick things off with some picture books. The Teeny Weeny Unicorn. In a land where horses are mythical beasts, there lived a teeny weeny unicorn, though that was not his name. His family lived in a palace that was extra large. Everything was oversized, and his siblings liked to use him as a pawn in their chess games, literally. Overwhelmed, the teeny weeny unicorn ran away and met a salty gnome in the garden of their castle. The encounter made him question if he is teeny weeny or just the right size. Caldecott honor-winning author-illustrator Sean Harris' book celebrates self-acceptance and delivers an important reminder to readers that we are all the right size no matter how big or tiny. Kids will love to read this story over and over. Next slide. Dog versus Strawberry. Join the greatest race of all time. The reigning champion Dog defends her title against the formidable Strawberry. Follow this hilarious story of a dog and a strawberry competing in an epic race. Dog sizes up the strawberry, dances around it, and challenges it to a race. She dashes left, then right, but the strawberry doesn't budge. Who will win? Well, you'll have to pick up a copy to find out. Kids will enjoy the playful rivalry and amusing situations in this book by award-winning creators Nellie Boucher and Andrea Zoll of Cat, Dog, Dog. Next slide. Don't Trust Cats. Chip the dog from Don't Eat Bees is back with more wisdom to share, including life lessons about cats. In this hilarious pet story by Dev Petty and Mike Bolt, Chip advises against trusting cats, even the little ones with the fluffy big eyes. You know the ones I'm talking about. He suggests trusting the squirrel you always chase, or Grandpa, who may cheat at cars but always has treats, and the friendly neighborhood skunk. This is a fabulously funny story that is sure to delight dog and cat lovers alike. Next slide. Lucky Duck. From Greg Pizzoli, the Geisel Award-winning author, comes a hilarious new picture book. Susan the Duck has the worst luck, but with each unfortunate event, Wolf shows up with a gift that she has won. See how Susan's luck changes in this funny, cleverly titled story, Lucky Duck. Next slide. You heard from Aaron a short while ago, but to give you another quick summary, Buffalo Fluffalo is a hilarious story about a buffalo who tries to impress others by pretending to be bigger than he actually is. When a rain shower soaks his disguise, the other animals gather around him and remind him that he doesn't need to pretend to be something he's not. This heartwarming tale, written by Emmy Award-winning and best-selling author Bess Kalb, encourages self-acceptance and is an engaging read for children and adults alike. Next slide. AHOY. After hearing from Sophie, there's little more to be said about AHOY. However, I will say this delightful picture book beautifully embraces childhood, creativity, and the significance of spending time with loved ones. The stunning illustrations bring the story to life, making it an essential addition to any library collection. And over to Michelle.
Hi, everyone. I'll be talking about I Am a Masterpiece. Mia Armstrong is an actress, a model, and voiceover artist who once declared in a Good Morning America interview that Down syndrome is her superpower, and she's proving that to be true. Mia likes many things like other people, like going to the beach, the color blue, and drawing, but she really doesn't like when strangers stare at her because she looks different from them. In this highly personal and debut picture book, Mia Armstrong offers a glimpse into the life of a child with Down syndrome, helping some readers see themselves in a book and helping others understand those friends, classmates, and family members who are neurodivergent. This is such an inspirational and important book to share with readers of all ages. Next slide, please. Philippa Sue is an actor and singer best known for originating the role of Eliza in Broadway's critically acclaimed Hamilton. In this picture book debut, Philippa teams up with her sister-in-law, who is a psychotherapist and an adjunct professor at Columbia University's School of Social Work. Together, they share an empowering story about a girl who turns her performance jitters into confidence when faced with singing a solo at her school concert. Piper Chin loves nothing more than to sing. She sings to the sun, she sings to the moon, and she sings to the birds out her window. So when her music teacher asked if she was would like to sing a solo in her school play, she said yes. But as practice continues, doubt and worry creep in, and Piper's confidence begins to waver. This is the perfect picture book to share with kids who are graduating or performing in a school production. Next slide. Nico Tortorella, perhaps best known for their role Josh on the hit dramedy series Younger, begins this debut picture book with a letter sharing their personal experience with being gender fluid. Olivet is a child who wants all kids to know that all of it is you and to embrace every part of themselves. Olivet is a character everyone can see themselves in, but they are especially relatable for members of the LGBT plus IA community. The tone of the story is wonderfully positive with its sing-song rhyming text. This is such a great entry point for anyone who wants to talk about gender expression with children. Next slide. And we just heard from Sheetal. So not much more to say here, but just in this follow-up to Always ANJALI, ANJALI is back for an encore performance, and she loves playing the tabla and getting lost in the music, but she really doesn't, and she doesn't really mind that people think that that instrument is meant for boys only. But what she does care about is when her skills make other people treat her differently. So much so that she even starts downplaying her talent and messing up on purpose. This is truly a celebration of passion and self-expression, South Asian representation, and is truly an empowering story that will inspire kids to be proud of their talents and to never dim their light for anyone. Next slide, please. Vera Ahia has taught kindergarten and first grade for the last 15 years in Boston, Austin, and Brooklyn, and she is affectionately known as the tutu teacher online. This is a sweet picture book, this sweet picture book will help every young reader feel more comfortable in kindergarten by reminding them that we all shine in different ways. And as our kindergarten teacher in this book, Miss Perry, says, it is always okay to ask for help. Seeds don't grow on their own. They need the help of the sun, of good soil, and water to grow, just like you. The underlying themes of growth mindset, self-confidence, and personal development will be a welcome message in classrooms and libraries throughout the year, and especially for reflection around graduation. Next slide. And everyone's favorite grump, Jim Pansy, star of the #1 New York Times bestselling Grumpy Monkey series, has caught a bad case of spring fever and wakes up feeling very silly in this delightful new picture book. Colorful illustrations paired with humorous and lyrical text make this for the perfect group read aloud, sure to garner big laughs from even your grumpiest grumps. And now over to Natalie.
Hey everyone, I'm Natalie Capagrossi, here to talk about a few STEM-themed picture books, starting off with Speck, an itty-bitty epic. In vivid watercolor paintings, Margot McGank brings this beautiful picture book to life, seamlessly shifting perspective to show how even the tiniest creatures, every barnacle, every child, every star in the sky, every little speck in the sea, contributes to something greater than itself. Next slide, please. And The Secret Elephant. This picture book by Alan Rankin is based on the beautiful and unusual true story of the friendship between an elephant and her keeper. When bombs shake the zoo grounds and it is no longer safe for the keeper to stay in the elephant enclosure, the keeper brings the elephant to her home for safety. Years later, when the keeper returns to the zoo, the elephant remembers her, showing us all that kindness is never forgotten. The book includes a note from the author and facsimile newspaper clippings of the actual events that inspired this story. Next slide, please. Gravity is Bringing Me Down is a very funny text from award-winning author Wendelin Van Dranen, and it has bright, bouncy illustrations, making it hilariously clear how gravity impacts kids' lives every day. This funny, STEM-powered picture book brings the science concept to life for young readers. Next slide, please. And on to some nonfiction. You and the Universe. Adapted from Professor Stephen Hawking's posthumous 2020 Earth Day message, You and the Universe is his first picture book and is a tribute to the littlest citizens of Earth. It highlights the power of coming together and stresses the importance of creating a better tomorrow. The book says very clearly that we are all time travelers journeying together into the future, but we want to make sure that the future is a place we'd like to visit. This book asks questions like, how can we save the planet? How can we learn to be there for one another? This is a book that will offer encouragement to those who are concerned and searching for solutions to climate change. Next slide, please. And What's Inside a Bird's Nest? Rachel Ignatowski's What's Inside series has made nonfiction accessible and engaging through diagrammed and vibrant illustrations of elementary science, drawn in her beautiful and distinctive art style. She created What's Inside a Flower and then taught us about caterpillars in What's Inside a Caterpillar Cocoon. And now Rachel Ignatowski is here to teach us about birds, nests, and eggs with a touch of humor and compassion for our friends with wings in the sky. Next slide, please. And this is A Plate of Hope, with a lyrical text from Aaron Frankel and stunning illustrations from Paula Escobar. Here is a picture book biography about a world-renowned humanitarian and chef that's sure to inspire a new generation of community helpers. From the earthquake in Haiti to the war in Ukraine and the COVID pandemic, Chef Jose Andres, along with his World Central Kitchen organization, has served more than 200 million meals and counting, bringing food, comfort, and hope to people during crises. This book is publishing simultaneously in Spanish as Un Plato de Esperanza. And I'll turn it over to Jasmine.
Hello, my name is Jasmine Serafino, and I'm an associate in the school and library team. I have 7 titles that talk about family, community, and friendship for you. And up first, I have Elijah's Easter suit. Elijah is on a mission to find the perfect church outfit for Easter. After searching all over town with no results, Elijah is crushed, but after an important conversation with Deacon Brown and Mother Green about tradition, culture, and clothing, he's inspired to create his own Easter masterpiece, a patchwork of perfection that tells his story with style. Next slide, please. The Last Stand. From the author of Nigel and the Moon and the sibling illustrator duo who brought you the old truck comes The Last Strand, a story about one little boy who's excited to work alongside his papa as they collect eggs, plums, peppers, and pumpkins to sell at their stand in the farmer's market. Of course, it's more than a farmer's market. Papa knows each customer's order from Miss Rosa's pumpkins to Mr. Johnny's peppers. And when Papa can't make it to the stand, his community gathers around him with dishes made of his own produce. Next slide, please. Love Lala. Caribbean soca artist Nyland Blackman invites you to shimmy and spread the joy of Carnival. Join Lala and her papa as they dance through the streets of Trinidad and Tobago. Cheer on the king and queen of the Carnival parade and end with a great performance on stage. Next slide, please. Mango Memories. Narrated by a determined young Indian child and set in a lush mango grove, here is a picture book that honors generation traditions. Join a little girl as she finally is old enough to help her family harvest mangoes. But when the girl climbs a tree, she becomes too dizzy. How can this little heroine create her own mango memory if she can't even pick a mango? Next slide, please. The Spice Box. In this multi-generational story about family and culture, learn about Rishi's father's family spice box. This spice box is more than just a fragrant spice in shades of gold and ruby. This spice box holds memories that are passed down from one generation to the next, as each found their place in this wide world. When Rishi drops the box that holds that family's heart and history, he draws courage and meaning from their treasured past to set things right. Next slide, please. From the creators of the best-selling book, All Are Welcome, comes Wherever You Go. Follow a set of kids and their families through the big and small milestones of a childhood's life, with colorful illustrations and beautiful rhyming text. This book leaves you with the inspiring message, wherever you go, whatever you do, I want you to know I'm so proud of you. Next slide, please. Ride Beside Me, from the New York Times bestselling comics creators of Stepping Stones, Apple Crush, Relish, and Kids Gloves, comes a picture book that celebrates the joy of biking. Join a mother and son as they bike through the neighborhood, joining friends and neighbors along the way. Before long, the bikes outnumber the cars and the trucks. Celebrate the idea of communities coming together to build a safer and greener streets for all. And with that, over to you, Erica, for early readers and chapter books.
Thank you, Jasmine. Okay, so help kids dream big with the Little Golden Book biography series. These are the perfect introduction to nonfiction for young readers and fans of all ages. And here's just a few of our upcoming titles. Next slide, please. Step Into Reading offers books at 5 skill levels for emergent readers. The program promotes fluency and integrates science, social studies, and math. Popular characters like Misty the Cloud and All Are Welcome will excite even the most reluctant readers. Step into a lifetime of reading. And over to you, Adrienne.
Hi, everyone. I am Adrienne, and I am here to talk about, we have 4 books on this slide of our continuing series that we're very proud to be publishing, and know they are helping early readers fall in love with reading. With a shout out to Ron Roy's A to Z Animal Mysteries, because this is a new series being written by Kayla Whaley and features mysteries and animals. What a combination. Next slide, please. I'm going to move on to some graphic novels. And our first one is, we are so excited to announce a new graphic novel series based on the classic Dr. Seuss books we all know and love. Seuss graphic novels are brand new stories. They're not adaptations, penned by premier comic book creators. The first one is Cat Out of Water. We get to go back to that normal day with Sally and her brother when they get visited by a cat in a hat. These chapter book graphic novels are a perfect bridge book for fans of the original Dr. Seuss picture books, and as well as the Elephant and Piggy series. Watch for The Grinch coming in fall 2024. Next slide, please. Now for something different, you might know Debbie Fong as an illustrator of picture books. In her graphic novel debut, Debbie explores grief, resilience, and learning how to laugh again, and does it in a way that is just right for middle graders. When Pia's younger brother dies and her parents move the rest of the family to a new town, Pia decides to go on a road trip with a family friend, stopping at weird and wacky roadside attractions. But this is one of those trips that turns into much more than what the final stop is. The friendships that Pia makes along the way are just as valuable as the destination itself. Debbie Fong weaves together an incredibly strong debut filled with humor and heart with a splash of mystery and magic. Next slide. Kira and the Maybe Space Princess by Megan Brennan is the start of a new graphic novel 3-book series that is perfect for manga fans. It's a book with wishes, magic, humor, and a catacorn. That's a catacorn. That's a cat unicorn space princess, and the book is about acceptance, friendship, and courage. Next slide, please. So this one is a favorite of our team, and I'll tell you why. Tween Vampire Roller Derby. Yes, you heard me. Skates on, fangs out, let's roll. When Mina's Olympic dreams are ruined by a big fall, it's only the start of her problems. Next, she's kind of kidnapped by a group of undead kids on roller skates and recruited to be the one human member on their vampire squad. Mia must learn how to play the sport, deal with a crush, and learn how to look out for a team rather than just worry about herself. Next slide, please. And on this slide, we have the next installments of some of our chapter book graphic novel series that we hope you are already familiar with. Next slide. And on this slide, we have 3 series that we know your middle graders and maybe even some teen readers are enjoying and will want to read the next chapters. And with that, over to Regina.
Hi. The Misfits is a new series from Lisa Yee, who is a Newbery honoree and National Book Award finalist for Maisie Chen's Last Chance, and from Dan Santat, winner of the Caldecott Medal and #1 New York Times bestselling author and illustrator of over 100 books. Olive Coben-Zhang has issues, and they mostly aren't her fault. Suddenly, she's dropped off at the strangest boarding school ever, where she's lumped in with a team of other kids who never quite fit in. She discovers that the academy is a cover for an elite group of misfits who fight crime. And Olive has arrived just in time to stop the heist of the century. As Olive falls in love with this wacky school, she realizes it's up to her new team to save the only home that's ever welcomed them. Next slide, please. An outsider in her village above the cloud sea, 12-year-old orphan Ewing Sing Jing's only hope of escape is to win the single invitation to train as a silhouette, an apprentice to the immortals. In the underwater realm of the immortals, Zijing must face challenging trials to prove that she's worthy and overcome sabotage attempts. But as Zijing's power grows, an evil spirit returns. Can Zijing use her newly uncovered talents to save her friends and the world beyond? Or will the gray-eyed spirit consume them all? Paper Dragons is Zeboyan Demont's debut novel, inspired by moments across her life, from childhood ferry trips between the Lantu Island and Hong Kong, and traveling around Taiwan, Italy, and Spain. Next slide, please. When you were in middle school, did you ever want to just disappear? Well, 6th grade takes a turn for the weird when Hector Griggs discovers that he can turn invisible. Sure, ever since Hector's ex-best friend started bullying him, he's wanted to disappear, but he never thought he actually would. And then Hector meets another invisible boy who has an anonymous warning. I've been stuck here for years. The Gellam's haunting me, and it'll get you too. Acclaimed YA author Sean David Hutchinson makes his middle grade debut with this accessible contemporary fantasy that tackles important themes of bullying, emotional connections between boys, and a queer main character. Next slide. This is the second book in the Momo Arashima series. After vanquishing a demon king, saving her mom, and reconnecting with her friend, Momo ought to be living the life she's always wanted. But lately, her friend is ditching her to hang out with mean girl Riley, and groups of kids are vanishing without a trace, leaving Momo alone with Riley to fight a dangerous new enemy from Shinto legend. Momo Arashima is author Misa Serja's first middle grade series. It was inspired by the gods and monsters of her parents' home country, Japan. And now, over to Katie.
Thank you, Regina. I'm Katie Halata, the Director of Library Marketing, and I'm going to share a couple more middle grade titles with you. Isabel in Bloom by beloved author May Respicio brings us the story of 12-year-old Isabel. Having just moved to the US to join her mother, who had previously immigrated from the Philippines, Isabel finds that making new friends in a new city, in a new country, while trying to reconnect with her mother is extremely hard. But when she joins the gardening and cooking club at school, Isabel begins to find her way, and maybe even begins to bloom. Written in verse, Isabel in Bloom centers the immigrant experience, makes connections between food and culture, and explores how growth can take many forms. Next. The Wrong Way Home. Ferns lived at the ranch, an off-grid, sustainable community in upstate New York, since she was 6. The work is hard, but Fern admires the ranch's leader, Dr. Ben. So when Fern's mother sneaks them away in the middle of the night and says that Dr. Ben is dangerous, Fern doesn't believe it. But with the help of a new friend from school, and of course, the library, Fern realizes there are things that she learned at the ranch that are simply just not true. This is a huge-hearted story about a girl learning to question everything and to trust herself, from the author of Lasagna Means I Love You and The Lonely Heart of Mabel Lane, which Kirkus Reviews called a rich and rewarding debut in a starred review. Next. Lamar can't wait to start his filmmaking career and be just like his idol Spike Lee. But for now, he'll have to learn about being a filmmaker while also getting to know his grandfather. When Gramps talks about activism and Black history, Lamar doesn't think much about it. Times have changed since the old civil rights days, right? Then Gramps is killed in a traffic altercation with a white man claiming self-defense. But the Black community knows better. Gramps is another victim of racial violence. Determined to keep his grandfather's legacy alive, Lamar does the only thing he knows how. He records a documentary about the fight against injustice. From the critically acclaimed author and publisher of Just Us books, Wade Hudson, comes a riveting, timely, and deeply moving story about a young Black filmmaker whose eyes are open to racial injustices and becomes inspired to follow in his grandfather's activist footsteps. Next slide. Annie Shearer lives in the a country town of Upside Downs with her best friend, an adopted stray dog called Runt. When a greedy local landowner puts her family's home at risk, Annie directs Runt's talent towards winning the Agility Course Grand Championship at the lucrative Crumpets Dog Show in London. However, there is a curious catch. Runt will only obey Annie's commands if nobody else is watching. With all eyes on them, Annie and Runt must beat the odds and the fastest dogs in the world to save her farm. From Prince Honor winner Craig Silvey comes a heartwarming and hilarious story perfect for fans of Because of Winn-Dixie by Kate DiCamillo and The One and Only Ivan by Catherine Applegate. Next. For our next offering, we have 3 middle grade thrillers for readers age groups that we know are quickly growing in the genre for this age group. Dread Nation is a debut middle grade from Jennifer Killick. She brings us a story that is part Breakfast Club meets Stranger Things. When 4 classmates are forced to come to school on Saturday, they think that things couldn't get much worse. But they're wrong, of course. Things are about to get seriously scary because it's not a coincidence that they're all in detention together. Someone has been watching and plotting and is out for revenge. This is perfect for fans of R.L. Stine and the Goosebumps series. Next slide. Bumps in the Night is USA Today bestselling author Amelie Howard's middle grade debut. Eureka Reeker Lovelace is in trouble, the kind of trouble that sends her to her grandmother's estate in Trinidad for the whole summer. But something about the island feels different. Not long after she arrives, she meets a group of kids called Minders. They seem to have elemental powers, and Rika herself gains the ability to see jumbies lurking in the shadows. Soon she finds herself thrust into a magical adventure involving blood-curdling monsters, a supernatural silk cotton tree, and an endless maze. Rika must defeat the fearsome Jumbie King in order to save her family and her new friends. But unless she learns to believe in herself, she'll never beat him or escape his twisted maze. While this is a spine-chilling adventure, the story also teaches readers how to trust who they are and to never give up. And because Amelie is from Trinidad and Tobago, she's well-versed in the unique regional folklore and mythology, and was able to incorporate several figures from different folklores into the story, adding another rich layer for readers. Next slide. Benny Ramirez and the Nearly Departed. After moving cross-country into his late grandfather's Miami mansion, Benny discovers that the ghost of his famed trumping player abuelo, the great Ignacio Ramirez, is still there and isn't very thrilled about it. He's been barred from the afterlife, and no one can see him except his grandson. But Benny's got a problem of his own. He's rolled in a performing arts high school with his siblings, despite having no obvious talent. Luckily, Abuela believes that they can help each other. Abuela has until New Year's Eve to right his many wrongs and thinks that teaching Benny to play the trumpet might be his ticket into heaven. Having no better ideas himself, Benny finds himself taking Abuela's advice to disastrous and hilarious results. This is a heartwarming story that is more funny than terrifying, about a grandfather and his grandson that show that it's never too late to make a connection. And now, over to Natalie.
Hi again. I'm here to talk about nonfiction middle grade titles, starting off with Unstoppable Us, Volume 2. From world-renowned historian and philosopher Yuval Noah Harari, the best-selling author of *Sapiens*, comes the second volume in the New York Times best-selling Unstoppable Us series that traces human development from the agricultural revolution to prehistoric Egypt. Yuval Noah Harari's dynamic writing is accompanied by maps, a timeline, and full-color illustrations, making the incredible story of our past fun, engaging, accessible, and impossible to put down. Next slide, please. And down to business. 2 teen entrepreneurs bring together 51 influential business leaders for Q&As about starting a business, finding success, and even making money. In a book that's unlike any book out there for kid or adult entrepreneurs, Fenley and Jason give readers access to leading innovators, inventors, and executives as they tell their stories and provide tips to a new generation of bosses. Next slide, please. We are excited to share the next book in the Race to the Truth series, a new middle grade nonfiction series that helps counter the narrative of textbooks that are still primarily written by white authors. Race to the Truth is written by the communities most impacted by these historical events. Until now, you've only heard one side of the story, but Chinese American history extends far beyond the railroads and what we've been taught. Here is the true story of America from the Chinese American perspective. Next slide, please. From nonfiction master and National Book Award finalist Albert Marin comes When Forests Burn. This is a fascinating look at the most destructive wildfires in American history, the impact of climate change, and what we are doing right and wrong to manage forest fire. Chock full of dramatic stories, fascinating facts, and compelling photos, When Forests Burn teaches us about the past and shows us a better way forward in the future. And I'll turn it over to Adrienne.
And now, this is something I hope you all like. I'm sure many of you know and remember Jeannie Birdsall's Penderwick series. What a special series, and the covers were so different and beautiful. Well, it's been 16 years since the first one came out, and we wanted to give them a little bit of a facelift without losing the beautiful art. This is what our amazing designers came up with, and I hope you like them. This is exciting. We'll have a brand new standalone, not Penderwick's related, but I'm sure very special novel from Jeannie in fall of 2024. And over to Katie.
All right, rounding out our middle grade offerings, we have several continuing series that feature magic and dragons, an illustrated friendship story complete with aliens, a clever mystery, and a fast-paced adventure with an interactive element. Next slide. And lastly, for middle grade, some of our upcoming paperback titles that boast amongst them multiple starred reviews and include a novel in verse, a young reader's adaptation, an illustrated series, and more. Now, passing things over to Michelle to kick off young adult.
These bodies between us. Four girls skating home, both sides of the road, fearless. Four girls at the mouth of an infinite ocean, sugared and salted with sand and seawater, the tide licking their sunburned feet. This summer, they're going to disappear. Follow these four friends who spend their summer learning to become invisible, as they also learn that disappearing comes at a huge cost. The Summer I Turned Pretty meets The Sisterhood of Traveling Pants and this haunting beach read with a speculative twist. Next slide, please. When David Levithan published Wide Awake in 2004, he set it in an imagined faraway future of 2024, which is just next year, where a gay Jewish man had just been elected president of the United States until a governor decides that some of those election results in his state are invalid and awards crucial votes to the other candidate. What follows is the story of teens Jimmy and Duncan as they explore their relationship, their politics, and their country. In Wide Awake Now, David Levithan is flipping the script and rewriting Jimmy and Duncan's story in the real 2024, rather than in his imagined version. This is a protest novel for today. Once again, David Levithan proves that the critical importance of standing up for what you believe in and the cost of apathy in today's political climate. In a starred review for the 2004 novel, Booklist says, Levithan's latest reaches out to shake readers awake, showing them how each person's life touches another and another until ultimately history is made. Next slide, please. Ariel is afraid of her own mind. She already feels that she's too big, too queer, and too tough to live up to her parents' expectations or to fit into what the world expects of a good girl. Then a summer job at a carnival brings her new friends, and she discovers a future where she can be at home in her mind and body. And for the first time, learns there's a name for what she struggles with, obsessive compulsive disorder. And she's not broken, and she's not alone. Exploring the harsh reality of OCD and violent, intrusive thoughts and stunning lyrical writing, this novel in verse conjures a haunting yet hopeful portrait of a girl on the edge. This is a fiercely feminist roar, and Olivia's pure talent shines through every word of her poems, blending beautiful lyricism, raw emotion, and page-turning immediacy. Next slide, please. What does it mean when your best friend is dead and your first instinct is to feel relief? A stunningly immersive debut about toxic friendships, grief, romance, and new beginnings. Dead Girls Don't Say Sorry is an absorbing page turner told in 2 timelines about how friendships evolve, how growing up can reveal the dark side of those you trust most, and it's about how even in the face of tragedy, we can find our way out of the dark and have the courage to step into something better. Hand this to fans of Kathleen Glasgow and Jessica Goodman. Next slide, please. What does it mean? Oops, sorry. From award-winning poet and author of Home is Not a Country comes an unflinching, honest novel in verse about a teenager's journey into the slam poetry scene and the dangerous new relationship that could threaten all of her dreams. Sophia explores themes of gender, sexuality, religion, and chosen family as her imperfect protagonist, Samira, struggles to find the truth between her traditional upbringing and the exciting future that's been advertised to her. Partly inspired by the myth of Persephone and Hades, as well as the continued exploitation of young women in the arts, this semi-autobiographic story from Sophia speaks to the past, present, and future. Hand this to fans of Elizabeth Acevedo and Rupert Carr. And next, over to Regina.
Up next is Romance with Broadway Meets Dungeons & Dragons with Dungeons and Drama. Musical lover Riley has big aspirations to work on Broadway. Step 1 of this plan is to bring back her high school spring musical, but Riley gets stuck with the worst punishment, working at her dad's game shop. Riley can't waste her time working when she has a musical to save, so she convinces Nathan, a nerdy teen employee, to cover her shifts, and in exchange, she'll help him make his gamer girl crush jealous. But Riley didn't realize that meant joining Nathan's Dungeons and Dragons game, or that role-playing would be so fun. Soon, Riley starts to think that flirting with Nathan doesn't require as much acting as she would have thought. On the next slide, we'll transition to horror. The house was supposed to be a fresh start. That's what Libby's mom said after Libby's recent bipolar 3 diagnosis and the tragedy that preceded it. But Libby's new home turns out to be anything but normal. Bugs haunt its winding halls, stained glass windows feature strange designs, and the locals tell stories about disappearances tied to the house, stretching back over a century. Libby's mom refuses to hear anything that could derail the family's perfect new beginning, but Libby knows better. We all wear masks to hide our imperfections, to make us stronger and braver, but if Libby keeps hers on for too long, she might just lose herself and everyone she loves. Next slide. All aboard. The Ghost Gang from novel Horror Hotel is back with more spooks and more subscribers. They've been invited to record on board the RMS Queen Anne, a transatlantic luxury ocean liner with a colorful past of violent deaths of hundreds of passengers. When one of them gets sucked into another time by a passenger who wants to avenge her untimely death, the gang must save their friend and solve the mystery. The Horror Hotel novels are fast-paced and funny with just enough horror. We know your readers will love them. And now over to Erica.
And here's a few thrillers and suspense titles. Last One to Die. This supernatural mystery was written by TikTok's CEO of Plot Twists, Cynthia Murphy. It blends sinister Victorian history with present-day horror, making it perfect for fans of Natasha Preston, the Pretty Little Liars series, and Riverdale. It features voice-driven whodunit storytelling with a classic slasher movie feel that keeps you guessing until the end. This dark, fast-paced, and creepy thriller is sure to captivate readers. Next slide. Lights, camera, lies. Holly Jackson, the author of the best-selling A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series, has written a new crime-fueled murder mystery thriller. This story follows a girl determined to uncover the shocking truth about her mother's disappearance while filming a documentary on the unsolved case. Holly's signature twists make this thriller compelling for reluctant and crossover readers alike. Next slide, please. Wander in the Dark. In this new pulse-pounding thriller by Jemad Amil, author of The Black Queen, two brothers must join forces to solve the murder of the most popular girl in school when one is caught fleeing the scene of a crime. Wander in the Dark is an enthralling thriller that will spark conversation and keep readers on the edge of their seats until the end. It is a nuanced and thought-provoking story that will leave readers feeling seen, understood, and challenged. And over to Jasmine for some fantasy titles.
The epic sequel of Song of Silver, Flame Like Night, a fantasy novel inspired by the mythology and folklore of Asian China, is here. The demon gods have risen, Sky's End has fallen to the colonizers, and Lan and Zen have chosen sides, but they will not fight together. At the center of both Lan's and Zen's journey is one city, Shakalahari, a former stronghold of the imperial court that vanished without a trace when the Aletians invaded. Its location is a mystery, and both are sure that it holds the answers they need, but the past it hides might be more dangerous than anything they faced yet. The battle for the Last Kingdom rages on, but to win the war, Lan would have to decide, can she face the boy she loves again? And when she does, can she kill him to free her people? Next slide, please. Diablo's Curse. From the author of The Wiccan Bargain comes another queer action adventure set in the same world. Dami, a gender-fluid demon, is determined to cancel every deal they've ever made in order to tether their soul to Earth and become human again. There's just one person standing in their way, Silas, an irresistibly and stubborn, cute boy cursed to die young, except for the deal with Dami that is keeping him alive. If they cancel the deal, Sila is dead, unless they can destroy the curse that has plagued Sila's family for generations. But to do so, Dami and Sila are going to have to work together. That is, if the curse doesn't kill them first. Next slide, please. Namina Forma is back, and with the finale to the groundbreaking New York Times best-selling Gilded One series. We are placed mere weeks after confronting the Gilded Ones, the false beings she once believed to be her family, in order to kill the gods whose ravenous competition for power is bleeding the order dry. Decca must uncover the source of her divinity, but with her mortal body on the verge of ruin, Decca is running out of time to save herself and an empire that's tearing itself apart at its seams. Next slide, please. And now we have two science fiction books, starting with Snow Globe. Translated for the first time in English from the original Korean novel, Snow Globe is a groundbreaking exploration of personal identity and the future of the world as we know it. This climate fiction dystopian world that will have you reminiscent of Hunger Games and Squid Games and even your favorite K-drama tropes. Set in a world of constant winter, only the citizens of the climate-controlled city of Snow Globe can escape the bitter cold. The residents of Snow Globe have everything, fame, fortune, and above all, safety from the desolation outside their walls. In exchange, their lives are broadcast to the less fortunate outside who can watch each eagerly, hoping for the chance to one day become actors themselves. Cho Van, for the time she spends watching the shows produced inside Snow Globe, including her favorite actor, but when the actor is discovered dead, she's chosen to take her place. But life inside Snow Globe is nothing like what you see on television. Reality is a lie, and truth seems to forever out of reach. Next slide, please. The Colliding Worlds of Nina Lee. From the award-winning author of Finding Junie Kim and co-founder of We Need Diverse Books, Ellen O, we have The Colliding Worlds of Nina Lee. When Nina Lee, a Korean teenage artist, goes to her SAT prep, she didn't expect to nearly be fried by a superhero turned out to be a supervillain, or come to face with the boy of her dreams, or even discover a conspiracy involving the evil corporation Merco that she created. Mia has become the hero of her own story, literally. Nina is trapped in a fictional world she created, and now it's up to her to save everyone, even if it means losing the boy of her dreams forever. And over to you, Katie.
All right, and closing things out for our young adult list, we have some of our upcoming paperback titles. These include a queer romance, they highlight teen mental health, share an alternate history complete with a Regency romance, launch an epic fantasy series, and even more. And now, take us home, Erica.
Okay, and that concludes our Spring 2024 RHCB preview. Thank you so much for attending. To stay up to date with our upcoming books and resources, please follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and visit us at rhtllibrarians.com. Additionally, we would like to let you know that all of the ARCs and FNGs of the titles that we presented today are available for request on Edelweiss and NetGalley. So make sure to visit both of those catalogs on the platforms. Thank you all, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much to the Random House Children's School and Library team. That was an amazing preview, and we'll keep an eye out for all those wonderful books. Tomorrow, all attendees will receive an email containing links to today's video recording, title list, slide presentation, and a certificate of completion. For more about Booklist webinars, be sure to visit www.booklistonline.com/webinars, where you can view archives of past webinars and register for upcoming ones like those you see here. Between January 1st and August 31st, 2023, ALA's Office for Intellectual Freedom documented challenges to 1,915 unique titles, an increase of 20% from the same reporting period in 2022. Join the fight to help protect the freedom to read by supporting the Unite Against Book Bans campaign and visit their website, uniteagainstbookbans.org, for resources, toolkits, merchandise to donate, and more. And remember that you can utilize Booklist to support your library's collection development choices with reviews backed by the ALA. We have a special webinar subscription offer, and don't forget that your subscription dollars help ALA advocate on behalf of libraries, assisting those facing an unprecedented number of book challenges. Email us at info@booklistonline.com for more information. Attention booksellers. Booklist Reader showcases books your customers can purchase from your store today. In addition to sharing from your website, you can now distribute print copies to your visitors. Scan the QR code on the screen or visit our website to order copies for your store today. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. One more huge thank you to our sponsor, Random House Children's Books, and to our panelists, Sophie Blackall, Erin Cron, Sheetal Sheth, and the entire Random House Children's School and Library team. This concludes today's webinar. See you next time.